Admiral stood on the bridge of his massive warship, looking at the stars through the viewing window. His four arms moved quickly across the control panels as reports came in from his crew. The Empire controlled this part of space, and nothing moved here without his permission. "Sir, we have something on the long-range sensors," called out Lieutenant from his station. "Unknown ship approaching from the outer rim." A's purple skin darkened slightly. Unknown ships usually meant trouble. Pirates, rebels, or worse species that did not know their place in the Empire's order. He walked over to the sensor station, his heavy boots making soft sounds on the metal floor. "Show me," he ordered. The main screen lit up with a green dot moving slowly toward their position. The computer displayed basic information about the ship. It was small, maybe 200 meters long, not very impressive compared to his own ship, which was over 2 kilometers of pure Imperial power. "Any match in our database?" I asked. "No, sir. The design is completely unknown. Hull shape and energy patterns do not match any registered species." I felt his curiosity grow. In his 40 years of service, he had seen ships from hundreds of different worlds. The Empire had conquered most of them, and the rest paid tribute to avoid the same fate. But this ship was different. "Open a channel," he commanded. The communications officer worked his controls. "Channel open, Admiral." "Unknown vessel, this is Admiral of the 3rd Imperial Fleet. You are entering space without permission. State your name and purpose immediately." For a moment there was only static. Then a voice came through the speakers. It was speaking Galactic Standard but with a strange accent. The words sounded rough, like the speaker was not used to the language. "This is Captain Sarah of the UES Defiance. We come in peace, seeking diplomatic contact with your government." I almost laughed. The voice belonged to a female and she sounded young and uncertain. "UES, what does that mean?" "United Earth Ship, Admiral. We represent the human species from the planet Earth." Now I did smile. His intelligence reports had mentioned humans recently. They were a new species that had just learned to travel faster than light. Earth was in a small system far from any important trade routes. The Empire had marked it for future conquest, but there was no hurry. Humans were supposed to be weak and primitive. "Humans," I said to his crew, loud enough for the human captain to hear. "Another species of children playing with ships they barely understand." He activated his command console. "Captain, you are in violation of Imperial law. Your species has no rights in this region of space. Prepare to be escorted to a processing station." "With respect, Admiral, we were not aware of any territorial claims on this area. Our star charts show it as unclaimed space." A's eyes narrowed. The human was arguing with him. No one argued with an Imperial Admiral. "Your star charts are wrong. Everything within 50 light-years of this position belongs to the Empire. You will surrender your ship immediately." "I'm afraid we cannot do that, Admiral. We are on a peaceful mission to establish relations with your government. Surely we can discuss this like reasonable beings." The Admiral felt his anger rising. This human female did not understand her position. He would need to make the situation clear. "All ships," he ordered. Around the small human vessel, 3 massive Imperial dreadnoughts suddenly appeared. Each one was 10 times larger than the human ship, bristling with weapons that could destroy entire cities. The standard Imperial intimidation display always worked. I waited for the panic, the immediate surrender, the begging for mercy. It always happened the same way. But the human ship did not run. It did not power up weapons or raise shields. Instead, Captain's voice came back over the communication channel, and she sounded curious rather than afraid. "Impressive ships, Admiral. Mind if we get a closer look?" I stared at the screen. No one had ever responded like that before. Fear was the normal reaction. Respect. Sometimes anger, but always fear underneath. "Sir," reported his sensor officer, "the human ship is moving toward us. Slow and steady. No aggressive actions detected." "What are they doing?" I muttered. The human ship approached without any sign of fear or hostility. It was smaller than his smallest escort, but it moved with confidence. I watched the readings from his sensors. The human ship's energy patterns were strange. Not wrong exactly, but different from anything he had seen before. "Captain," he said into the communicator, "you are either very brave or very foolish." "Probably a bit of both, Admiral. We humans have a saying, 'Fortune favors the bold.' We would like to meet with you to discuss peaceful relations between our peoples." I considered his options. Protocol demanded that he destroy or capture any unauthorized vessel in Imperial space, but something about this situation felt unusual. The humans showed no fear, even when faced with overwhelming force. That was interesting. "Very well," he said finally. "We will escort you to a neutral meeting point. But understand this, any hostile action will result in your immediate destruction." "Understood, Admiral. We appreciate your willingness to talk." As the small fleet moved toward the meeting coordinates, I found himself studying the human ship more carefully. It looked simple enough, but there was something about it that bothered him. The way it moved, perhaps, or the energy readings that did not quite make sense. He had conquered dozens of species in his career. All of them had followed predictable patterns. They either fought desperately and lost, or surrendered immediately and begged for mercy. But these humans were doing neither. They were acting like equals. And that, Admiral realized, was something the Empire had never encountered before. Science officer, or had been working with sensors and technology for over 30 years. He had analyzed ships from every known species in the galaxy. Each race had their own style, their own way of building things, but they all followed the same basic rules of physics and engineering. The human ship was breaking those rules. "Admiral," or called from his station, "you need to see these readings." Admiral walked over to the science station. The screen showed detailed scans of the human vessel as both fleets moved toward the meeting point. Numbers and diagrams filled the display, but most of them were highlighted in red. The computer's way of saying something was wrong. "What am I looking at?" I asked. "The hull composition, sir. The computer cannot identify the materials. It appears to be a combination of metal and crystal, but arranged in a way that should not be possible. The molecular structure is too complex for our database to process." I frowned. Imperial science was the most advanced in the galaxy. They had studied and conquered hundreds of worlds, absorbing the best technology from each one. Their computers contained knowledge from 1,000 different civilizations. "Run the scan again. Check for equipment malfunction." "Already done, sir. 3 times. The readings are consistent," or pointed at different sections of his display. "But that's not the strangest part. Look at the energy output." A new graph appeared on the screen. It showed the power being generated by the human ship compared to what it was using. The numbers made no sense. "According to this, their reactor is producing more energy than it consumes," or said quietly. "That violates basic thermodynamic laws." "Impossible. No one can create energy from nothing." "I know, sir, but the readings show their engine somehow pulls power from empty space itself. Our best theories say that should not work, but they are doing it anyway." Admiral stared at the data. The Empire's power came from having the best technology. If another species had discovered something beyond Imperial science, it could change everything. "Could they be using captured technology from another species?" he asked. Or shook his head. "I thought of that, sir, but look at the design patterns." He brought up a new display showing the internal structure of the human ship. Every system has unique characteristics, redundant safety measures, modular components that can be replaced quickly, and efficiency levels that are almost unnatural. This is not technology. They built this themselves. but humans have only had faster-than-light travel for 20 years. Our reports say they barely understand basic warp physics. That's what makes this so disturbing, Admiral. Either our intelligence is completely wrong, or humans have advanced farther in 2 decades than most species do in centuries. I felt a cold sensation in his stomach. The Empire had dominated the galaxy by being superior to everyone else. If humans could build ships like this after only 20 years in space, what would they be capable of in 50 years? Or 100? "Show me their weapon systems," he ordered. Or worked his controls. "That's another problem, sir. We can barely detect their weapons at all. The energy signatures are so subtle that our sensors almost miss them entirely. Either they have very weak weapons or what? Or they use technology so advanced that our equipment cannot properly analyze it." As they watched, the human ship performed a small course correction. It should have been a simple maneuver, but something about it caught Orr's attention. "Sir, did you see how they turned?" "What about it?" The acceleration curve was perfect. No wasted energy, no unnecessary stress on the hull. Most ships produce some inefficiency when they change direction, but this one moved like it was dancing. Admiral studied the sensor readings more carefully. The human ship did seem to move with unusual grace. It reminded him of the way water flowed around rocks in a stream, natural and effortless. "There's something else," Orr said. "Watch this." He highlighted a section of the human ship's hull. "See these small movements along the surface?" I looked closer. Tiny changes were happening across the entire outer shell of the human vessel. It was subtle, but constant. "The hull is repairing itself," Orr explained. "Microscopic robots smaller than anything in our database are continuously improving the structure. They're not just fixing damage, they're making the ship better while we watch." "How is that possible?" "I don't know, sir. Our best nanotechnology requires massive support systems and careful environmental controls. But these machines seem to work in the vacuum of space without any visible infrastructure." The Admiral felt his confidence shaking. Every piece of information about the human ship suggested they were dealing with something far beyond what intelligence reports had prepared him for. "Sir," the communications officer called out, "Captain is requesting permission to send over detailed scans of our ships. She says it would help with the diplomatic process." I almost laughed. "She wants to scan us, what for?" "She says human technology works differently from galactic standard, and she wants to make sure their ship won't accidentally interfere with our systems during the meeting." "Accidentally interfere? How could their small ship affect our dreadnoughts?" Or looked up from his station. "Sir, based on what I'm seeing, I'm not sure small is the right word anymore." "What do you mean?" "Their power output suggests they could easily match one of our heavy cruisers. And if their weapons are as advanced as their engines, size might not matter at all." Admiral realized that his entire understanding of the situation was changing. He had expected to meet a primitive species flying crude ships. Instead, he was facing technology that made imperial science look primitive. "Deny their scanning request," he ordered, "and double our security protocols. I want constant monitoring of that ship." "Yes, sir." As the fleets continued toward the meeting point, I found himself thinking about the implications. If humans could build ships like this, what else could they do? And more importantly, how many more ships did they have? The thought that worried him most was simple. If this was what humans considered a basic exploration vessel, what did their warships look like? He decided he did not want to find out. But deep in his mind, Admiral suspected that he would discover the answer whether he wanted to or not. The meeting point was a neutral area of space between 2 star systems. Admiral had chosen it carefully far enough from any planets that there would be no interference, but close enough to Imperial territory that he maintained the advantage. The human ship, UES Defiance, hung motionless in space near his flagship. It looked even smaller up close, dwarfed by the massive Imperial dreadnoughts surrounding it. But after the disturbing sensor readings, I was no longer sure that size mattered. "Admiral," came Captain's voice over the communication channel, "thank you for agreeing to this meeting. We hope this can be the beginning of good relations between our peoples." "That remains to be seen, Captain," I replied. "Your presence here violates Imperial law. Before we can discuss diplomacy, we must establish whether your species understands strength and honor." "What did you have in mind?" I smiled. This was standard Imperial procedure when dealing with new species. A demonstration of military capability served two purposes. It showed the Empire's power, and it revealed the true nature of potential enemies. "A combat exercise," he said. "3 of my destroyers against your single vessel. Non-lethal weapons only, of course. It will give us both a chance to evaluate each other's capabilities." There was a pause before Captain responded. "Very well, Admiral. We accept your challenge." "Excellent. My ships will use training weapons plasma bursts at 1/4 power and impact missiles with inert warheads. Enough to disable shields and damage hull plating, but not to destroy your vessel entirely." "Understood. We'll adjust our systems accordingly." Within an hour, the combat zone was prepared. 3 Imperial destroyers took position in a wide triangle formation around the human ship. Each destroyer was twice the size of the Defiance and carried enough firepower to level a city. Admiral A watched from his command ship as the exercise began. He expected it to end quickly. Human technology might be advanced, but they had no real combat experience. The Empire had been perfecting space warfare for thousands of years. "Begin combat simulation," he ordered. The Imperial destroyers opened fire immediately, their plasma cannons lighting up space with brilliant blue energy. The standard tactic was overwhelming firepower from multiple directions, forcing the enemy to choose which attack to block while the others found their target. The human ship did something unexpected. Instead of raising shields or trying to dodge, it accelerated directly toward the incoming plasma bursts. This should have been suicide. But at the last possible moment, the Defiance twisted in a way that should have torn it apart. It rolled completely upside down while turning 90 degrees to the left, all while accelerating at a rate that would have killed any normal crew from the gravitational forces. The plasma bursts passed harmlessly through the space where the human ship had been a split second before. "How did they survive that acceleration?" asked Commander A's tactical officer. "Unknown," I replied, watching with growing concern as the human ship continued its impossible dance through space. The destroyers adjusted their aim and fired again, this time coordinating their shots to cover all possible escape routes. No ship could avoid attacks from 3 directions simultaneously. The human ship proved them wrong again. Captain's vessel performed a maneuver that violated everything Admiral knew about space combat. It seemed to stop moving forward and backward at the same time, sliding sideways through space while spinning like a top. The coordinated plasma bursts missed completely. "Sir," reported his science officer, "their ship just pulled 53 Gs during that turn. The crew should be dead." "But they're not," I said grimly. "Which means either they have gravity control technology beyond our understanding, or humans are physically tougher than we thought." The combat exercise continued, and the Imperial destroyers found themselves facing an opponent unlike anything in their training. The human ship fought like it was alive, flowing through space with impossible grace. It used the gravity wells of distant planets to slingshot around attacks, turned asteroid debris into weapons by accelerating it with precisely aimed engine bursts, and somehow managed to be exactly where the Imperial ships were not aiming. After 20 minutes of futile attacks, the destroyers finally scored a hit. A plasma burst struck the Defiance's shields, causing them to flare and collapse. Admiral felt a moment of satisfaction. Finally, the humans would show their true weakness. Instead, something incredible happened. The human ship's hull began to change. Where the plasma had struck, the metal seemed to flow like liquid, rearranging itself into new patterns. Within seconds, the damaged area was not only repaired but appeared to be stronger than before. "Their armor is adapting," whispered the science officer. "It's learning from each attack and becoming more resistant." The next plasma burst that hit the same section of hull simply bounced off harmlessly. But the most shocking moment came near the end of the exercise. The 3 Imperial destroyers had finally managed to surround the human ship, positioning themselves so that escape was impossible. They fired simultaneously from all directions, certain that this time there was nowhere for their target to go. The human ship disappeared. For a full second, it simply was not there. Then it reappeared behind one of the destroyers and fired a single, precise shot that overloaded the Imperial ship's engines without causing any other damage. Before the other 2 destroyers could react, the Defiance was behind them as well, delivering the same surgical strike to disable their propulsion systems. How? Admiral stared at his tactical display. How did they move like that? His science officer was frantically checking his instruments. "Sir, for approximately 1.3 seconds, our sensors detected the human ship in 3 different locations simultaneously. That should be physically impossible." "Should be," repeated, "but they did it anyway." The combat exercise was over. 3 Imperial destroyers hung dead in space, their engines disabled but their crews unharmed. The human ship floated nearby, apparently undamaged despite being outnumbered 3-1. Captain's voice came over the communication channel. "Good fight, Admiral. Your ships are very well designed. We hope this demonstration has been helpful for both our peoples." Admiral realized that everything had changed. The Empire's military doctrine was based on the assumption that their technology was superior to everyone else's. But the humans had just proven that superior technology could come from completely unexpected directions. "Captain," he said slowly, "I believe we need to have a much longer conversation than I originally planned." "We would welcome that, Admiral. There's quite a lot our species need to discuss." As he looked at the tactical display showing his disabled destroyers and the untouched human ship, Admiral understood that this conversation would change the galaxy. He just hoped the Empire would survive the changes that were coming. The neutral station was small and simple, built for meetings between different species that did not trust each other. Admiral arrived with a full security detail, expecting to meet with a dangerous enemy who had just humiliated the Imperial fleet. Instead, he found himself facing a middle-aged human woman who looked like she could be someone's grandmother. Captain Sarah was shorter than most Imperial officers, with graying hair and smile lines around her eyes. She wore a simple blue uniform with no fancy decorations or weapons. When she stood to greet him, she moved with the easy confidence of someone who had nothing to prove. "Admiral, she said, extending her hand in the human gesture of greeting. "Thank you for agreeing to this meeting. I know our combat exercise raised some questions." Stared at her hand for a moment before carefully shaking it. Her grip was firm but not aggressive. Everything about her seemed perfectly normal, which somehow made her more frightening than if she had been obviously dangerous. "Captain," he said, "your ship performed maneuvers that should be impossible. I need to understand how." Gestured for him to sit at the simple table in the center of the room. "Of course, but to explain that, I need to tell you about Earth. Your home planet. Our intelligence reports describe it as a standard terrestrial world in an unremarkable system." Laughed, a warm sound that filled the small room. "Your intelligence reports are very wrong, Admiral. Earth is not a standard world by anyone's definition." She activated a small device that projected a holographic image of a blue-green planet above the table. It looked peaceful enough, with swirling white clouds and vast oceans. "This is Earth," said. "What your reports didn't mention is that it's what galactic science classifies as a Class 12 death world." Admiral felt his heart skip a beat. Death worlds were planets so hostile that most species could not survive on them at all. He had seen a few in his career worlds with crushing gravity, toxic atmospheres, or deadly radiation. They were marked as uninhabitable and avoided by everyone. "Death world," he said, "but your species evolved there." "Exactly," smiled again, but there was something sharp behind her eyes now. "Humans didn't just survive on a death world, Admiral. We thrived on one, and that makes us very different from everyone else in the galaxy." She touched her device again. The image of Earth zoomed in to show the surface. I saw massive storms that could destroy cities, volcanic eruptions that threw ash into the upper atmosphere, and vast frozen regions where temperatures dropped far below what most species could endure. "Our gravity is 1.3 times what most galactic species consider normal," explained. "Your crew members would feel like they were carrying heavy weights every moment of every day. Our atmosphere has oxygen levels that would be toxic to most visitors. And our weather." Lightning flashed across the holographic Earth, showing storm systems larger than some moons. "Our weather changes constantly and violently. Hurricanes that can level entire regions, tornadoes that appear without warning, blizzards that bury whole cities in ice. Humans learn to deal with sudden, deadly changes from the moment we're born." Admiral began to understand. "This explains your reaction times in combat." "Partly, yes. When you grow up dodging lightning strikes and running from flash floods, space combat feels almost slow by comparison. But it's more than just reflexes, Admiral." Leaned forward, her expression becoming more serious. "Your empire has spent 10,000 years conquering other species and taking their technology. You've become very good at using what others have built. But humans spent 10,000 years learning to build solutions to impossible problems." "What do you mean?" "Every day on Earth is a survival challenge. Our planet tries to kill us in dozens of different ways. We had to develop technology that could work in extreme heat, extreme cold, crushing pressure, and toxic environments. We had to build things that would keep working when everything went wrong." The hologram changed to show human cities. I was surprised to see structures that looked delicate but were clearly designed to bend with earthquakes and survive massive storms. "Our engineering philosophy is completely different from yours," continued. "Imperial technology is built for perfect conditions. Clean energy, controlled environments, stable gravity. Human technology is built for chaos. Your ship's impossible maneuvers are normal for us. Every human pilot trains in conditions that would kill most galactic crews. We practice combat in gravity fields, magnetic storms, and radiation clouds that would shut down Imperial vessels. Your ships are designed to avoid problems. Ours are designed to work better when everything goes wrong." Admiral felt a chill that had nothing to do with the station's temperature. "How many ships do you have?" Smile became almost predatory. "Thousands, and that's just the beginning." "Beginning of what?" "Admiral, your empire controls space by being superior to everyone else. But what happens when you encounter a species that became superior by surviving on a world that would kill everyone else?" She stood and walked to the viewing window that looked out at the stars. "Every human ship is built to operate in conditions that would destroy Imperial vessels. Our standard radiation levels would cook your crews. Our normal acceleration would crush your warriors. Our routine maintenance procedures happen in environments that most species use as torture chambers." I realized that his entire understanding of the galaxy had been wrong. He had thought the Empire was powerful because they had better technology. but humans had developed their technology under conditions so harsh that Imperial science seemed weak by comparison. "What do you want from us?" he asked quietly. "Right now, just recognition that we exist and have the right to explore space peacefully." But Admiral turned back to face him. "You need to understand something important. Humans don't just survive impossible conditions. We use them to become stronger." Meaning? Meaning that every challenge makes us better. Every problem we solve teaches us something new. Every threat we face shows us how to build better defenses. She sat back down at the table. "Your empire has been the dominant power for thousands of years, but you've grown comfortable with that dominance. You expect other species to be weaker than you. Humans don't have that luxury. We expect everything to try to kill us, so we prepare for everything." Admiral stared at the human captain and realized that his worst fears were coming true. The Empire's power had always been based on technological superiority, but humans had achieved superior technology by facing challenges that would destroy Imperial civilization. "Captain," he said slowly, "I believe my government needs to reconsider its plans for your species." "That would be wise, Admiral, because whether you want to be our friends or our enemies, you're going to discover that humans are unlike anything the Empire has ever encountered." As she spoke, Admiral could see the future changing. The age of Imperial dominance was ending. The age of human innovation had begun. The Imperial Council chamber had been silent for nearly an hour. 7 of the most powerful beings in the galaxy sat around the curved table, staring at the report that Admiral had delivered. Some read it for the 3rd time. Others simply stared at the data displays showing human technology readings that made no sense. High Chancellor Eth finally broke the silence. "This cannot be accurate," she said, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had ruled star systems for centuries. "No species advances this quickly. It violates everything we know about technological development." "I every detail personally," Admiral replied from his position at the center of the chamber. "The humans have achieved in 20 years what most civilizations take to accomplish. By your account, their single exploration ship defeated 3 of our destroyers," said General On, his face showing disbelief. "Our destroyers that have conquered hundreds of worlds." "Not defeated, disabled. They could have destroyed all 3 ships if they had chosen to do so." Captain made it clear that they were being gentle. The word gentle hung in the air like a toxic cloud. The Empire was not accustomed to being shown mercy, especially by a species they had planned to conquer. "What are your recommendations, Admiral?" asked High Chancellor Eth. I had spent days considering this question during his journey back to the Imperial capital. The answer would shape the future of the galaxy. "We have 3 options," he said carefully. "First, we could attempt to destroy humanity before they become too powerful. Second, we could try to conquer them and absorb their technology. Third," prompted the Chancellor when he hesitated. "Third, we could negotiate with them as equals." The chamber erupted. Several council members shouted at once, their voices echoing off the stone walls. The idea of the Empire treating anyone as an equal was revolutionary and terrifying. "Impossible," roared General On. "The Empire does not negotiate with primitives." "They are not primitives," Admiral said quietly, but his voice carried across the chamber. "That is what I am trying to make you understand. Humans may be new to space, but they are more advanced than we are in ways that matter." High Chancellor Eth raised her hand for silence. "Explain." "Their technology is not just different from ours. It is better, more efficient, more adaptable, more powerful, and it comes from a completely different approach to solving problems." He activated the chamber's main display, showing the combat footage from the exercise. "Watch how their ship moves," he said as the recording played. "See how it adapts to damage. Notice how it appears to break the laws of physics. This is not luck or accident. This is the result of a species that has spent thousands of years learning to survive impossible conditions. You said their home world is a death world, noted science advisor. How does that explain their technological advancement? Because they did not just survive on a death world, Admiral explained. They mastered it. Every piece of human technology is designed to work in conditions that would destroy our equipment. Their normal operating environment would be considered an emergency situation for us. The implications began to sink in around the table. An enemy whose basic technology was superior to Imperial emergency systems would be unbeatable in any prolonged conflict. What about their numbers? Asked General On. Surely they cannot have many ships yet. According to Captain, they have thousands of vessels already in space, and their construction capabilities are expanding rapidly. Thousands. The Chancellor's voice was barely a whisper. And growing. Remember, they accomplish in months what takes us years. If we give them time to prepare, they will outnumber us as well as outclass us. The chamber fell silent again as the council members considered the terrifying mathematics of human expansion. A species that built better ships faster than anyone else would dominate the galaxy within decades. Meanwhile, far across space, Captain Sarah stood in the communications center of Earth's orbital command station. Around her, dozens of officers worked at stations coordinating humanity's growing presence in the galaxy. Report from the Perseus sector, called out Lieutenant Commander Williams. Colony ship has established successful settlements on 3 worlds. All systems are operating within normal parameters. Titan Base reports that their deep space sensors have detected 17 new star systems with potentially habitable worlds, added another officer. Smiled as she listened to the reports. Humanity was expanding into space faster than even the most optimistic projections had predicted. The combination of human determination and death world technology was proving unstoppable. Captain, said her communications officer, we're receiving a priority message from Admiral of the Empire. Put it through. The alien Admiral's image appeared on the main screen. He looked tired and worried. Captain, he said, I have delivered your message to the Imperial Council. They are reconsidering their position regarding humanity. That's good to hear, Admiral. We hope for peaceful relations with all galactic civilizations. I must ask you a direct question, Captain. How many ships does humanity really have? Paused for a moment, considering how to answer. The truth might cause panic, but lies would only delay the inevitable. Currently, about 8,000 vessels of various sizes. But Admiral, you should understand that humans build ships differently than other species. Our construction time is measured in weeks, not months or years. She could see the shock on A's face as he calculated the implications. 8,000 ships in 20 years, he said slowly. And we're just getting started. Earth is building new shipyards throughout human space. Within 10 years, we expect to have 50,000 vessels exploring and colonizing the galaxy. 50,000. Admiral, I want you to understand something important. Humans are not aggressive by nature. We prefer exploration and trade to conquest, but we will defend ourselves if necessary, and we have become very good at surviving threats. Admiral nodded slowly. I understand, Captain, and I believe my government is beginning to understand as well. After the communication ended, turned back to the reports flowing in from across human space. New colonies, new discoveries, new achievements that pushed the boundaries of what was possible. Back in the Imperial Council chamber, High Chancellor Eth made the decision that would reshape galactic politics for the next 1,000 years. Admiral, she said, you will return to human space immediately. Your new mission is to establish formal diplomatic relations with the human government. The Empire recognizes humanity as a sovereign civilization with full rights to explore and colonize unclaimed space. The council members looked stunned, but none argued. They had all seen the data. They all understood what was coming. Furthermore, the Chancellor continued, you will propose a mutual non-aggression pact between our civilizations. The Empire has no desire for conflict with a species capable of such rapid advancement. As Admiral prepared to depart on his new diplomatic mission, he reflected on how much had changed. A few weeks ago, humanity had been a footnote in Imperial intelligence reports. Now they were reshaping the balance of power in the galaxy. The age of Imperial dominance was over. The age of human exploration had begun. And somewhere in the vast emptiness between the stars, the next generation of human ships was already being built, carrying technology that would make today's impossibilities seem simple. The galaxy would never be the same.